welcome to Them's Writin Words, a podcast discussing selected fanfictions from the world of pastel horse literature. My name is Scribbler, and I will be your moderator today, in as much as I moderate anything. Joining me for this discussion, we have Clever Hooves.
Hello.
Illya Leonov.
Hello, everyone.
And our Fickpickerton, VladiVoices.
Hello.
Today, we are looking at the fanfic NIGEB by Aquaman, as chosen by Vladi. The synopsis, which she's going to read, is...
Fluttershy has been plagued by nightmares, and Twilight wants to help her get rid of them. But when the bookish mare begins to pry into the depths of Fluttershy's unraveling psyche, she finds more questions than answers. What do her dreams mean? Why won't they stop haunting her? And why does the creature she keeps seeing inside them seem like more than just a simple night terror?
The story was published on the 31st of October 2012 and clocks in at 9,777 words. I believe it was also for a fanfic contest over on Equestria Daily. So, we're going to go into spoiler-free territory first, and then I will signal when we're going into spoilers. You can go and read it if you want to rejoin us at that point if it sounds interesting. There is a fanfic version of it. It was mine from 2013. It's not very good because it's from 2013, but if you want to listen to it, by all means. But now...
It still look good.
You're very sweet. Very wrong, but very sweet. Right, okay. So we're going for tags to begin with. The tags on this are dark and horror, and that's it. Vladi, do you believe those tags are accurate?
Yeah.
I'm going to need a little bit more than that, Vladi.
Yes, it is very dark, very much horror, wow.
There you go. There's your extra.
Horror, wow.
We just
Horror
witnessed
now.
the dogification of VladiVoices. Much wow.
Much wow. I actually do have Shebas.
Oh my god. So we're just going to call you Doji Voices from now on. Okay. Right, Illya, do you think that the tags are accurate?
Insufficient, but probably accurate for what they are. I would have preferred something. Is there an atmospheric or a suspense?
I think there is thriller, which I think would probably apply. Don't think atmospheric is. I would definitely agree. If tense was a genre, this would be it.
I agree.
And Clever?
I'm not so great with the tags. I think that the ones that are there certainly apply. I just don't know what else I would put on, if any.
I'd add friendship, to be honest. If friendship was a tag, I would. Because Fluttershy and Twilight in this... Probably, I don't think friendship is a tag, but it should be. But I think drama would be in there too. Because anything that's like personal, interpersonal drama. When and I can say this because this is not too much of a spoiler, when Fluttershy feels that Twilight doesn't believe her, and they have that small falling out, I think that counts as drama or psychological. So I think the dark and horror do fit. I wonder if this is a holdover from the fact that in 2012, I think you could only have 2 tags. So maybe the author would have added in more if this had been published later on. Yeah, this is an old fic.
I knew that. Never knew that was a rule.
I remember because the fanfic contest that this was for was the first pony fic I ever actually published, which, Illya, you did a reading of not long after, the one where Trixie went around eating... No, Trixie got a horn eaten by Luna. Which sounds sexier than it should be. It was actually a horror.
That was a great story. I like that.
Well, that was from... I've forgotten its name. I'll put the link in the doobly-doo. But it was for the same contest. And I'm pretty sure I could only put 2 tags on it. So I think 2 genre tags might have been the maximum back then.
Well, that's
interesting.
Well, how about we go on now for a spoiler-free summary of the story from Vladi. We'll give some brief highlighting of later points like tone and pacing and things, and then we're going to hit the spoilers. So, Vladi, take it away.
Okay. Fluttershy has several nightmares of different ponies being haunted by a monster she calls NIGEB, since that's what it says, much like a Pokemon. She talks to Twilight about the nightmares and that they started after she found a pocket watch in the Everfree Forest. Twilight tries to help Fluttershy stop the nightmares through logic, but Fluttershy's nightmares continue. Over time, Fluttershy starts to suspect that the nightmares are more than just dreams. And I think that's about all I can say before spoiler stuff.
Okay, very succinct. So, what are our general opinions on this story? Vladi, what to begin with, because you picked it. What are your general spoiler-free opinions of it?
I really like it. It's a really good horror, and like you guys mentioned, a lot more of tension rather than just constant like fear and running from monster stuff. It was really good. It's one of my favorite horror ones, and I really like it.
Illya, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to have to fall back on something I've said quite a bit in the last few stories, and that is that it was beautifully written. I absolutely loved the way the author portrayed things. As to what was portrayed, I wasn't such a fan. Up here were the synopsis. It says, when the bookish mare begins to pry into the depths of Fluttershy's unraveling psyche, she finds more questions than answers. When I read the story, I found more questions than answers, and that's sort of the way I felt about it.
And Clever?
Well, I believe that I've come to the conclusion that I don't think I gave this story a fair shake. I felt it was well written when I read it initially, but I didn't find it very scary. And I think it's because I just didn't understand what was going on. And it wasn't until I read kind of a comment from the author that I finally got what was getting on. And then I suddenly had a new appreciation for it, which leads me to wonder if I really need to be a bit more mindful when I'm reading, because clearly I don't think enough about fics until I'm doing a podcast about them.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I felt the same exact way. I sort of feel like it's the author's responsibility to make us understand what they're trying to say without us having to delve too deeply into it.
Yeah.
But I did feel that it was certainly spooky. And I felt that there were definitely moments that were very visceral, and I appreciated that. And I felt that the characters were well portrayed. We're just giving our brief overview, right now? Or should I just go into something that I thought was interesting that I noticed that was rather specific?
It's more of a brief overview at the moment.
All right. Well, I'll hopefully remember later. And
this is why you need post-its.
Yeah, I do need post-its. I just don't have them at all. It's a good atmospheric read. When I was reading the comments on it, there were a lot of people that really got to a level of, I don't want to say terror, but tension and terror that I just didn't feel while reading it. And I don't know if it's because I'm a soulless husk that just things like this bounce off me now, or if there's something else. And I'm still trying to weigh that right now. And
that sounds like it'll be quite useful when we talk about whether or not it still has impact in 2023 that it did in 2012.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a me issue or not, and I would love to explore that later.
Well, since we've given our brief overview and there's only 4 of us, Vladi, would you give the spoilerish plot summary? So if anybody hasn't read or listened to this so far, now is your chance to go and rejoin us with spoilers. Vladi.
All right, buckle up, boys and girls. Let's go. Fluttershy has nightmares every night as different ponies being hunted and killed by the monster NIGEB. These dreams are in order, though Fluttershy doesn't know whose perspective these are. The actual order is Fluttershy, Rumble, Derpy, and Applejack's deaths by NIGEB. Fluttershy tells Twilight about her nightmares and of NIGEB. Twilight thinks they're just regular nightmares and offers some simple remedies. Fluttershy then has a nightmare of Pinkie Pie, not knowing it's Pinkie Pie, trying to hide from NIGEB. In the dream, she cut her flank on a knife, and just like the other nightmares, Fluttershy's Pinkie Pie is killed by NIGEB. The next day, Twilight asks Fluttershy more questions about her nightmares. Fluttershy reveals that it started after going into the Everfree Forest and finding a gold pocket watch. Fluttershy panics after remembering something from the trip to the Everfree Forest and goes to leave when Twilight points out an injury in the same place Fluttershy dreamt being cut last night. The next night, Fluttershy unknowingly has a dream as Rarity in her home. She's confused that Rarity isn't as scared of NIGEB as the previous dream victims were. Rarity investigates her torn-up room before NIGEB gets her too. The next day, Twilight lectures Fluttershy for going into the Everfree Forest again. Fluttershy insists she had to do as NIGEB told her and go back to where she found the pocket watch to return it. Twilight had told the others about Fluttershy's nightmares by this point. Fluttershy is angry with Twilight for not believing her and says it doesn't matter because it's over. When Fluttershy goes to leave, however, the pocket watch mysteriously falls out of her bag. Twilight is confused, but Fluttershy realizes there is no escaping the watch or NIGEB. That night, Fluttershy dreams of Twilight being confused instead of scared, for NIGEB gets her too. Fluttershy wonders why each dream is moving further from the climax. Twilight goes to Fluttershy's house to apologize to her and promises to help Fluttershy end her nightmares. After Twilight leaves, Fluttershy cries before eventually falling asleep. Fluttershy wakes up in her home and assumes it's another dream. She sees NIGEB acting oddly calm and speaking in reverse of what she heard before. Fluttershy realizes too late that she is not dreaming and is consumed by NIGEB, and her body transforms into the monster. Twilight returns home and finds a note hidden in her book that mentions NIGEB. It warns to not speak of it because it hunts whoever knows of it. Before Twilight can go tell Fluttershy, Fluttershy's dream comes true and Twilight is faced with NIGEB as it says, begin. Sorry if that was a bit long.
No.
Nope.
Right. So, given that, the first thing we're going to talk about, as we always do, is characterization and whether or not we feel it's accurate. And considering that we only really see, outside of dreams, 2 characters in this, Twilight and Fluttershy, which I have opinions on, but I will say mine last. Do we feel the characterization is accurate for Twilight and Fluttershy? Vladi, I'll start with you because you've just given us the plot summary. Go on. What do you think?
I personally think it at least does a fairly good job of characterizing them. Twilight, of course, trying to use logic and such to try and help a friend and getting frustrated at any possibility of it being supernatural or unexplainable. And Fluttershy also being just very meek and shy about the whole thing and being, cowardly. My brain has died, so I'll just leave it at that.
Clever, what do you think?
I thought that they were reasonably okay. There are at times, like, I almost, there's a line that really struck a chord with me, and it reads this. It says, Twilight's chuckle was a throaty one, that of some pony who either didn't care for social graces or had never completely grasped them to begin with. And that just resonated with me a bit, not because I feel that way about myself all the time, though sometimes I do, but in the idea that, Twilight sometimes is embraced as being somewhat on the spectrum, and it felt like the author was sort of nodding towards that. And I felt like this Twilight nodded that way, felt like it was nudged that way a little bit, maybe on purpose. And I thought that was a fine characterization of her, though maybe pushed a little more that way in this particular story than what I normally see her. I don't know. But as for Fluttershy herself, she's distressed Fluttershy. And I don't know how well she, seems to exude Fluttershyness because she's under this distress. So what I saw seemed to be reasonable for what Fluttershy should be. But my biggest issue with Fluttershy is that I feel like the impact of what was going on with her might have been better if it had been a different character. Though a lot of people seem to really like the use of Fluttershy as a foil here to Twilight.
And Illya?
Well, it was 2012 Fluttershy in Twilight. Twilight was written as being all about books and learning and what I can find from there. And, that seems pretty consistent. I thought Fluttershy was a little too bold in places, a little too brash. I know she went through a lot of stuff, but I wasn't certain about that. The interactions between the two characters were wonderful. I just thought they were beautifully written. They were all sorts of things about Twilight coming over and putting a hoof on her shoulder. It was just wonderful intimacy they were sharing at certain points, and an empathy on Twilight's part that I thought was just wonderful. Yeah, I'm okay with the characterizations.
I am okay with it up to a point. And that point is, I don't know why Twilight didn't bring in the other friends. It just strikes me as incredibly odd. Even 2012 Twilight, considering that the huge emphasis on working together and sharing your problems and many hands making light work, or many hooves as the case may be, it just struck me as very odd from a character point of view that Twilight never once involved the other friends. Not even Rainbow Dash, who canonically at this point has known Fluttershy longer than anyone. And that just struck me as really odd.
That is a good point.
That's a good point, really.
Well, I'm willing to be convinced, as with other podcasts. No, with other podcasts or podcasts or anything like this, I'm willing to be convinced that I'm wrong. So somebody give me a reason why it was okay for Twilight to just go, nah, totally, I can deal with this on my own. Oh, wait, we're all dead now.
She did mention telling the others.
Yeah, she mentioned telling the others, and she honestly didn't believe it was anything but a dream for a while.
But once it got past a certain point, even, Twilight would have acknowledged her own dreams were telling her about Nightmare Moon in the premiere of the very first episode. So there's a lot of weight to be had in dreams. I don't know.
I get the feeling that the author wanted to have a sort of economy in the writing. It didn't want to bring in a lot of other characters to muddy up the story, so it just wanted to tell it in this particular style. That's the way I was looking at it.
Yeah, that's the feeling I got from it as well, is that they wanted to keep the cast small to make the whole thing feel more claustrophobic for Fluttershy, but I don't know. Vladi?
Twilight does mention we found you deep in the Everfree Forest, so it seems like the others at least helped find her in the Everfree Forest. Why they buggered off after that, I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And also just hearing an American say buggered off is amazing. But yeah. She's completely absent from the fic. But in which case, I don't know why Rainbow Dash is mischaracterized as, she just fucked off. Her best friend in all the world from childhood has been found shivering and mumbling to herself under a bush in the Everfree, which is completely untamed at this point. Yeah, I'm going to go home.
Well, she probably went fishing.
She probably went to go have a nap on a cloud.
You could argue that that maybe the others volunteered to do one last little patrol, make sure there were no more harpies and stuff that had followed them into town, and that Twilight, because she knew about the dreams, was decided to stay to talk to Fluttershy. That's the best argument I got for that.
Yeah, it just seems really out of character still. Once it had basically turned to very near self-harm, because fucking hell, they all nearly died in the Everfree. It just feels weird that the others would still not be around.
Fair point.
You just brought something on that I just had a thought. I wonder what would have happened if Fluttershy had killed herself before NIGEB got her.
Ooh.
I don't know. It depends what kind of logic you're going on with. If it's Final Destination logic, then it just moves on to the next pony. It always knows who knows, remember?
Right.
But if it's other fantasy media that I can't quite remember at this point logic, it ends the spell until Twilight finds the fucking watch.
But she only finds the watch because it left Fluttershy, right?
Yeah, that does beg the question of it always knows who knows, Fluttershy says. So will it just move on to the next person?
All right.
Because each time somebody dies, it moves on.
And I also wouldn't mind seeing some kind of sister sequel where the dreams are somehow encountered by Luna.
Ooh.
Just because I think that's
interesting.
That would be an interesting thing to explore. Would be like, well, these supernatural induced dreams that are somehow chronologically intertwined, right? Like they're future-y, which I really didn't get initially. But how would Luna deal and so on? I think Vladi very much wants
Just
to
to
speak
add on
this.
that,
Vladi?
a good way to tie that in is that Twilight did tell Celestia about him, so maybe Celestia's being plagued by the nightmares or has died to it, and Luna's trying to figure out what's going on. Sequel fanfic in the making. Woo!
Only 11 years later. What am I saying? I'm still writing the fic that I wrote in 2012. Fucking hell. Okay, so do we have any more comments on the characterization?
Just that I really think it should have been Rainbow Dash and not Fluttershy. That's my opinion.
Could be. I think the fact that Fluttershy is frightened of everything was kind of, especially early fandom Fluttershy being frightened of everything, that was very much her character. She hadn't had all that development in canon yet. I think that does kind of fit that nobody would take her seriously because, of course, Fluttershy's frightened. She's always frightened. Whereas people were more likely to be taking, ponies are more likely to take Rainbow Dash's fear seriously because she's notably fearless and therefore, oh, this might actually be quite serious.
But that's the thing. Like, in terms of the mental unraveling, like, I thought it would have been much more poignant and hit harder if it was someone like Rainbow Dash coming unglued. And I thought that rather than her going and admitting that there's a problem, she probably would be, it would go much further with her before she would finally open up about it.
See, I think Rainbow Dash would be good in the Twilight role in this because Rainbow Dash absolutely would not think to get the others involved because she's always been independent and it's always just been her and Fluttershy. So she probably wouldn't look up anything in a magic book. Okay, Twilight didn't find anything that was useful anyway. Rainbow Dash is someone Fluttershy would confide in. Rainbow Dash is someone who wouldn't get the others involved and would dismiss Fluttershy's fears. I do think the Twilight role would be better served by early fandom Rainbow Dash.
Was this written before or after Rocket to Insanity?
Before. That came out... Well, actually, you know what? It might actually have come out at roughly the same time. Because I'm pretty sure Cupcakes was 2011 and Rocket to Insanity was like a year later in 2012. So if this was written
sort of redundant
before October, this was roughly the same time. Yeah.
Kind of reminds
thought.
me of the
Crossover.
Silent Ponyville 2 in that regard. Rainbow helping Fluttershy with nightmares and all that. And guess what?
Yeah.
Just kind of like how you pointed out,
Yeah.
Rainbow Dash did take her to Twilight for help, so reaching out for friends and all that.
Yeah, she did in that one, but that was because the original Silent Ponyville had already passed by that point. So Pinkie Pie was the one who pushed them to go to Twilight in Silent Boneyville. Boneyville. Fucking, I can't talk!
Bonyville.
SP2.
I want to visit
Right next to
Boneyville.
Bone Town. Oh, yeah.
No, you really don't. I can't with all you guys. I am trying so hard to be a good moderator today because there's 4 of us. And it should be easier to keep us on track with just 3
Hashtag
of
sorry,
you to
not
corral.
sorry.
Mm-hmm. Not sorry.
You're never sorry.
I was sorry earlier.
True, that is true. Okay, right. So we're going into impressions of the prose style. How does this story read? Is it trying to achieve any particular tone? And if so, how well does it achieve this? And I'm going to start with Illya, because he talked about how he enjoyed the beauty of the writing. So Illya, what's your opinion on the prose style in general?
Knocked it out of the park. If it's kind of hard to tell in some respects because I didn't identify with the story well, but it was very suspenseful and atmospheric and eerie, and the character interactions were wonderful. I thought everything about the way it was written was just beautiful and spot on. I just didn't like the story very much.
Ooh. So what is it about the story you just didn't gel with then?
Well, you remember the cabin in the woods thing we did? And
Don't open the door.
yeah.
Link in the doobly
It
doo.
was like,
With the
back
booger
then
man.
I intimated that I didn't particularly care for boogers chasing people. And it's just not very interesting to me.
I just imagined a giant mound of snot chasing people when you said that.
I just want more of a story. You know, where things happen and they're understandable, and there's. This one felt a little disjointed in some ways. I mean, the words were pretty. It seemed to be written well for what they were trying to do. I just didn't love what they were trying to do.
Clever?
Yeah, I feel the same way that Illya did. I will add a couple things. I felt that the dream sequences were especially well done in that they felt very much like a remembered dream. There was a lot of etherealness because of the kinds of focus points that the author decided to write about. The kind of details, the emotions that were being felt, and there was this disjointedness from the dreamer and what was going on. So it felt very dream-esque, even though, as it turns out, they weren't dreams exactly. But that, I felt, was well done, and I think that's actually difficult to do, and props to the author for pulling that off, because it really helps set a tone and an atmosphere, because it, of course, starts with these dreams, and then there's a couple, put through the rest of the story. But and I've got no problem with the writing at all. But like Illya said, it just didn't hit me as a story that really got to me. Like, Don't Open the Door got to me more. And there were scenes that I found actually truly disturbing in that. Whereas this one, there was tension, but I didn't care, and I still trying to figure out why that is exactly. And we can talk about that more. But that's what I have to say about the prose.
Vladi?
I personally really liked it. As I said before, it's one of my favorites. I kind of just liked the tension, the mystery behind it, and what NIGEB was. I just like everyone else said, I thought it was beautifully written. The dream parts actually felt like it was very like panic and like hurried, fast paced. While then when you're awake, it suddenly is like very still and kind of just sitting there. Well, since most of the time it's just Fluttershy and Twilight talking, so it was like a moment of, and it felt like a moment of calm reprieve that Fluttershy was getting away from the nightmares. And just even little details of like her taking too big a sip of her tea, or enjoying the comfort of Rarity's fainting couch and stuff. I really like it. I wish I had fancier words to say, but that's it.
I've got to say, the thing that jumped out at me most, and this wasn't something that I've recognised at the time, because I didn't get into creepypastas and things until a good, I think, 3 years later. But this reminds me, in its prose style, very much of early 2010s creepypastas. It's written like a creepypasta, almost like you could, with very little effort, change this so it wasn't a ponyfic at all. It could just be a random human story creepypasta. There's nothing in it that makes it so intrinsically pony that you couldn't change that. And I'm not sure if that's to the fic's detriment or to its power that it is so universal that way. That somebody who doesn't know a lot about pony could read this and understand it and enjoy it. Clever?
I think I was meditating while you were talking, and something about it kind of clicked. And I think that this lacked a certain level of personalness to the characters in which it was talking about, which goes along with what you were saying. And I think one of the reasons that I felt terror in a different story was because it was a very specific terror aimed at neuroses of the characters themselves, whereas this felt very impersonal. And I think that's why I ended up kind of not caring. And I would have liked to have seen more of, because Fluttershy in these dreams, which are horrific dreams, is always sort of this bystander, doesn't really know what's going on. And it's this distance from the dream, I think, that makes me kind of go, okay, so she's having a dream. It's a bad dream. And then she wakes up. And it's not till we get to the end of the fic that we realize that these are all actual events that will occur after the end of the story. But even so, that seems to lose its scariness, because I don't feel the terror. I don't feel the psychosis. I think if this had somehow preyed upon her specific fears somehow, I think it would have been more scary, more impactful.
Illya, then Vladi.
Yeah, something that Clever said resonated with me. I didn't care about what was happening in the story. And I think it's because of what you said, Scribbler. It didn't seem like a particularly pony story. It just didn't draw me in to the equestrian universe. And that's probably why I didn't care that much for it. Interesting.
Yeah, all that you two said actually does make a lot of sense. I can understand why I wouldn't draw you guys in as much. I still like it, but those make perfect sense for that. And even my roommate, she read it and kind of felt a little detached too.
Well, I think this is a very interesting psychological point, Vlad, about what it is about your personal story in your life that made this resonate with you.
I'm just easily satisfied with stories and easily amused with stories, and just listen. I'm like, monsters.
Oh my god, suddenly
That's
this
just
is
my
Pinkie
little
Pie.
kid voice.
Slightly posh Pinkie Pie. Oh, monsters.
Monsters. Oh, look, a monster.
It was just the fact that you had this slight British accent when you said it.
Oh boy, look at the monsters.
Are the monsters the man in the van? Sorry, I just...
No, the man in the van is a very helpful man. Man in a white van is very helpful and helps you move house. Man with the truck. Man with the truck, you got to watch out for.
So many things are backwards in the UK, not just the side that you drive on.
This is, for those listening, this is based on a conversation that we had before about the concept of a man in a white van being kind of ubiquitous in the UK and not necessarily being nefarious. Whereas in America, if you've got somebody in the back of a van, yeah, it's always bad.
Yeah, they're tied up.
Yeah, whereas a man with a white van might just be delivering your Amazon package.
Well, they usually are, but that doesn't stop the...
Yeah, but just random white van. Or I worked briefly for a man with a white van. It was weird. I was just moving shit around. It wasn't stolen, I did check.
I've never
But
had
it's just like a rite of passage.
I never had an Amazon package delivered from a white van. I might be suspicious if I do.
Oh.
We have a lot of independent contractors who do deliveries.
Yeah, I know my man in the van out here. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, my man in a white van who delivers the Amazon packages is from Spain. He's very nice.
Yay!
Just a little at the end.
So
we stand the nice men with vans. We do not stand the fuck on awful ones. Right. Right. Okay. So this story, in a very technical sense, is a non-linear narrative. It is odd that we are doing 2 of these in a row, because last time was very much a non-linear narrative when we looked at Killing All the Right Ponies. But it's non-linear in a very different way. This one goes backwards in its dream sequences, but goes forwards with its main narrative. I said before I did a reading of this back in the day. It took me 2 reads to understand what was going on the first time. And that's when I decided to do a reading of it. Because the first time I didn't really understand that the dreams were going backwards in the order in which ponies died.
Yeah, I didn't get that
Do
either
we
initially.
think it worked? Do we think that the non-linear narrative part worked in this fic? And how does it compare to the other non-linear narratives we've covered in Them's Writing Words? And I'm going to start with the fic picker, Vladi.
I really like it. That's all I'm going to be saying. Gosh darn it.
It's almost like you picked a fic that you really like to bring to the podcast where we routinely tear things apart.
Yeah. I didn't know what else to pick. So I really like
it's a good story, so...
It does work. It's I almost want to say a cheatsy doodle of a non-linear, because it's not truly non-linear. It has the crutch of the one linear story to help along the non-linear until the two meet in the middle and you realize what's going on.
In kind of a Cloud Atlas kind of way.
I'll pretend I know what that means and say yeah.
I also have not seen Cloud Atlas.
I have not seen the film. I have, however, read the book. Cloud Atlas is a story that is told both forward and in reverse. It's a very strange story. I will link to a review of it by Kyle Colgren, because it's too complicated for me to explain here. The best I can say is it's kind of an hourglass shape of a narrative, and let you figure out from there. I will link this in the doobly-doo for everybody, because I'm not going on a 40-minute tangent to explain that one.
Okay.
Clever?
I kind of felt like this was almost V-shaped in how it works as a non-linearness. Like you, it's almost like you're driving along on a road and you're driving straight towards a hairpin turn, and you can see the road that you're going to go down, and you encounter it, going the opposite direction, and then eventually you're going to make that hairpin turn and go the other way. But the story stops at the exact time that you hit the hairpin turn, or the bottom of the V, because you've already seen the other side of it. What you don't know as the reader, though, is that the other side that you're watching while you're driving forward is real, and that you are in fact heading towards that inevitable part of your journey. And I think it wasn't until I realized that, and I only realized it because of a comment from the author, because I'm a little slow that way. Like I got after I read the story that, oh, okay, he's, NIGEB is real, and now he's gonna go and kill all the other ponies that were in the dreams. Like I got that much, but I didn't understand that that there was a temporal part of this, and that Fluttershy was experiencing reality in these dreams, and that they were reality to come, not just like prophetic dreams that didn't necessarily show exactly what was going to happen, but rather, that bad things were going to happen to these ponies. So it took me a while to figure that out. And when I did figure that out, then, of course, having a gold timepiece made sense. The whole reason why things were being spelled backwards, and the exact moment that which words were being said backwards, because go back was always said forwards, but then when we hit the hairpin turn in the fic, then all of a sudden those are being said backwards. So that all made much more sense, and I started to understand too why the ponies started to feel like less confused, or some less terror as pardon me, and why they did so in the order in which they did. It's because they started to understand what was happening. And so that whole, all of that suddenly started to make more sense, and that, there was a lot more stuff that was more purposefully done. And I appreciate the fic so much more. I still didn't care, but it made me appreciate the artistry and the craftsmanship that went into it. So, Vladi, I hope you don't feel bad at all, from us talking and tearing this apart, because there's a lot of really good technique that's in here. There's a lot of really good ideas that are in here. The fact that it just didn't connect with me emotionally, I mean, although I guess, that's a failing for me, and as Vic, that doesn't mean that other people won't read this and experience all the catharsis that it's meant to employ. I just, again, without beating a dead horse or a dead NIGEB or a dead Fluttershy, wish that they'd done more to with all of that talent on display of this author. I wish they'd somehow connected it more emotionally with Fluttershy. And I don't know how else to put that.
Yeah, you're perfectly fine. Don't worry. It's not hurting my feelings at all. Actually, your guys' little points and everything about it's actually really fascinating to me, and I actually appreciate the other perspective.
We're not afraid here. We cause the fear. We do what Starry wishes she could do.
Oh?
Right. Since you brought it up, Clever, do you want to read the note from the author?
Sure. It says, FYI, complete spoiling of everything left unanswered in the narrative lies below. I intentionally left that progression vague because I wanted to give the reader a chance to imagine on their own why there was a gap between the 5th and 6th of the main 6, because I've always been of the mind that fridge horror is a great deal more effective than horror expressed by another party like an author. By the time Rarity was attacked, the remaining 3 realized that something was targeting them and was suitably more afraid of it, hence Fluttershy noticing that the fear she felt in each dream tended to lessen with each ensuing one for her, and in the fact that the monster kills everything that knows of its existence, with the exception made for Celestia, benefits of being an immortal goddess and all. And that means that any of them about the monster becomes a target too. Once Rainbow is the last one, she tries to escape based on what she's pieced together from the deaths of her friends and a couple other ponies, Derpy and, in the second dream, Rumble, though it's not really important that you know specifically who they are, end up hearing about it. As a result, they become victims too, and inevitably Rainbow can't escape. And thus ends NIGEB's fun-filled rampage through Ponyville. Too long didn't read. The little coat was Rumble, and it's fine that you didn't know that, because it wasn't really critically important that anybody did.
Okay, so why did you feel like that deserved to be included in the podcast? What was your reasoning behind putting that on the doc?
Well, that whole the unanswered stuff from the narrative, when I read that, finally I started to get what the whole point of... I just didn't get it when I first read it. I was like, well, this is nicely read, it's creepy, it's this, it's that. But I wasn't... Initially, I honestly wasn't... I didn't make the connection that the scene from her last dream was the exact same scene we got of Twilight dying. I did not make that connection. Now, maybe I was a lazy reader or my memory just sucks, but it wasn't until after I read that I went back and I reread both of those scenes, and I realized that they were absolutely mirror images of each other, that they were identical, and I didn't get that initially. And that would have made that scene so much more spooky for me upon first reading it, had I made that connection. And it would have made Twilight's like visceral fear and all of that. I don't know. I just think it would have heightened it for me, and I just missed it. I missed that those dreams were literal and not just prophetic. And I also didn't know that this. I thought maybe this like NIGEB, Fluttershy turned NIGEB creature thing, like. What, like, is she now just going to kill every pony everywhere because it's been released? Or I didn't totally know the rules. Like, even after Twilight discovered that piece of paper, it was unclear to me what the rules were. And I didn't know that it, what was going to happen. Because, again, I thought just prophetic. And that there were other ponies that died in those dreams that hadn't been mentioned before. Like I didn't know how they got involved either. So I didn't know what was going on. And having this malevolence with these like rules and what have you, but this inevitableness of them. I think it just would have made me appreciate the fic more, I guess. And having read that comment made me rethink a lot of stuff that I had initially read and thought about in the fic that I had maybe dismissed or didn't catch, and made me really appreciate the construction of the fic more, which is why I wanted to bring it up here. I felt that enhanced my enjoyment of the fic.
Does anyone have anything to respond to that?
I do have something else, but not a response to that.
Go on then, Vladi.
I did my own self-meditation about, like, why I like it versus why it didn't resonate with you guys. I think it might have been, even though there was character disconnect, I enjoy mysteries. So maybe that's kind of a tag it was missing, was a mystery tag, because I like trying to solve things. I'm always like trying to guess the ending before the end of the movie. And so I really like this, and then going back and seeing like, oh yeah, there were the clues there. So that might have been it.
One tick,
no.
sorry, I've stepped on Milo's tail. I need to give him a treat because I've just offended him. I didn't mean to. He came out of his bag and I hadn't realised, and I moved my feet.
Sorry. I've offended you.
He's looking at me like, Mom, how dare you? You hurt me.
Oh no, poor baby.
Right, he's got some Whiskas temptations now. All is forgiven. I've given him food.
So, Illya, did you have anything to add?
To which point? I never was asked about the non-linear part. I missed.
That's what I'm asking, is like, is there anything you wanted to add? Because that comment was to do with the non-linear narrative, that it was a bit harder to understand. So what was your opinion on the non-linear?
Well, I saw it.
The thing that I can't say.
I was reading, as I was reading it, I saw it a little bit differently. It didn't read as a chronological non-linearity to me. It read as a spatial non-linearity. Like, to me, the actual things that were happening and the things that were happening in the dreams were actually happening at the same time. And the reason you had to shift back and forth was to inform the audience as to which part of reality that was happening right now we were looking at. I didn't see it so much chronologically different as just a difference in space.
I just wanted to add in that bit where Fluttershy had a wound as a result of her dream.
The slash mark on her cutie mark from Pinkie Pie.
Yeah, like that would definitely help buttress that idea that these were temporal things happening. Sorry, not temporal things happening, but rather spatial shifts. Because there was at one point that I wondered if this was like an alternate like world that she was going to in her dreams. Because that
it did
happened.
Seem like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because clearly
Could be.
no one was dying in real life, or at least in non-dream life at that point, and and yet she was being hurt by this dream. So there was a lot of confusion for me, and the idea that kind of obfuscation was intentional because this was meant to keep a mystery about it, I guess. But what it ended up doing to me was it just made it more confusing rather than more mysterious.
So very much is your mileage may vary for anybody who is planning on reading this. You might find it very intriguing. You might just find it quite confusing until the second read. If indeed you want to give it a second read. If it's confusing, you may not want to.
I think it's worth a second read. I do agree that your mileage may vary.
I do too.
But I think it's worth a second read, and I think that it's written well enough. I'm always, because I want to write, and I'm always looking at authors, and I'm finding myself deconstructing what they're doing as I'm reading more and more now. And I think that there's some wonderful technique that's in this story that, again, anyone else who's trying to figure out how to write, it deserves both a first read and a second read, and to come up with your own meditations on what worked and what didn't work and why, because there was a lot that was done quite well in this story.
Aquaman is a very good writer. I really enjoy his work.
Am I right in thinking he did the Them series, the one about pony zombies that transmit via magic? Because if so,
Possibly.
that's my
I
favorite
can't
series of his.
remember.
I am going to look that up
Oh?
because if that's the case, I fucking love that series. And literally, before I did Friendship is Tragic, it was between that and MLP Project, which is a long form comic that never actually got finished. It was between those two of that was going to be my next project. And then Friendship is Tragic came along instead. I say it came along, I wrote it. But hang on, I'm going to go look because if it is, absolutely want to recommend this. Not just like for TWW, but like just to read because they're so good. I have clear memories of being unable to sleep and during a particularly hot summer a few years ago and just mainlining every single one in the series because it was that good.
Oh, I haven't heard this one.
I just have to say, because I'm looking through Aquaman's list right now, and one title just jumped out at me. Is it gay for a stallion to give a unicorn mare a horn job? That's quite the title, Aquaman, and yeah.
He's one of those authors just has no genre limitations. Like some authors are exceptionally good at horror, some are brilliant at comedy. Aquaman just doesn't seem to have a genre limitation. Wow, I can't fucking talk today.
You're talking better than me.
Along with one buck mare, as opposed to One Punch Man.
And Diamond Tiara hunts down and systematically murders bad OCs. It's one of his early stories.
Yeah, I didn't say I really enjoyed all his work. I just think he's a good writer.
Oh, I'm not trying to say
Yeah, same.
I'm loving some of these titles.
I think it's a tie between him, Blue Shift, and Short Skirts and Explosions for the best titles.
Yeah. I was quite surprised. I'd known NIGEB for so long from Scribbler's thing. I'm like, hey, what else have they written? I saw that. I'm like, oh, what is all this?
Oh, I didn't realize that he did I Am Demon. Fucking hell. Astro Brony did that back in the day, and I took over as, I think it was Clover the Clever, after his original Clover. Yeah, fucked off, and it was such a good story, and I think it's completely gone from online now. If it is, I might upload that one myself, just because it's worth remembering. I'll find out if it's still online, though. Because it's such a good story, but also his editing on that was so well done. Like, there are people I genuinely miss from the fandom. Personal things aside, losing their content was a genuine loss to the fandom, and I do think Astro Brony was one of those. Thornquill as well.
Yeah, there's
Like,
a
when they
lot of
stopped
those
producing
authors that really did some good work, but they were difficult people. You recall Device Heretic did the Eternal series?
I think he'd actually left before I got into the fandom. Was he a difficult person?
And, yeah, a lot of people said so. I didn't have a lot of problems when he worked pretty well with me when I was doing his work, recording his stories, but he would come and go, disappear. I don't know if you'd call it rage quit or what, but he was a great author.
gosh.
Oh my God, he could write.
Right, I've discovered that it's not Aquaman. I'm going to find out who it is because I need to recommend this series. Paul Asaran. He's the other author that just has no genre limitations. Right, Paul Asaran did a series called Them. And I'm going to put a link to it in the description because it's just so fucking good. It's zombies done right in a pony setting. Like, there is no way that you could take this version of events out of pony and have it make sense. It 100% relies on pony.
That sounds
and I
like
love
fun.
it for that. It's so good. It's all post-apocalyptic. Like, apart from one in the series called Origin of Them, which was written after a lot of the rest, explains where it all came from. But it's so good. But the series is incredibly long. It's like, it couldn't be a TWW, but it's so good. Like, I'll put that in Discord and I'll put it in the doobly-doo.
Ooh, I'm excited to read this.
Ooh, I always like a good long read.
Okay, do we have any more points to add before I went off on my tangent?
There was one line I wanted to point out because I really liked it.
Yeah?
It's foreshadowing.
Yeah, go on.
It's when Twilight is showing Fluttershy the mirror to look at her wound, and first it describes like her looking at the reflection saying she saw the library, the title of each book of the shelf behind her in reverse. That seems like good shadowing for foreshadowing for both the title and the chain of events going on.
Nice. Okay, so on to point 7. This fic is now almost 11 years old. How does it hold up? Does it still have the same impact in 2023 that it did in 2012? And since I know that Illya and Vladi, I'm going to assume you weren't in the fandom in 2012.
I joined after the Cadence episode, so I don't remember when that was.
No, that was 2012. So okay, so Clever, you're the babby of the group.
I'm the babby in that respect.
You joined after. So I'm going to ask Illya and Vladi first, and then Clever, because Illya and Vladi were around in 2012, and therefore know what the fandom was like back then, whereas you've only seen it since its heyday. The apex, I would say, was about 2017, between 2014 and 2017, and thereafter it's not been as big as it used to be. It was very odd being a pony during its heyday. Do we think this fic holds up, Illya?
Sure. I think it probably reads as well now as it would have back in 2012. There haven't been enough changes in Pony to change the way that Twilight would interact with Fluttershy that well. Yeah, I think it's probably just as good now as it was then, but that also doesn't speak to the fact that I'm not particularly fond of it. So.
And Vladi, what do you think? Does it still have the same impact?
I'm not sure if it has the same impact, maybe, because I can understand, especially after the others' points, that, and much like what you said about how it could very much just be a creepypasta rather than an actual pony fic. So I can understand how, like, nowadays it's kind of more expected to have more of the pony themes and everything in it rather than just being a story with the characters from My Little Pony in it. Funny because I still love it to bits. I think it just as a story it hold up, but if you're particularly looking for very heavy MLP lore and stuff, that maybe it's not for you.
There's one problem.
Yeah, go on.
Twilight claimed there were no demons. Demons do not exist. I'm not certain that's canon anymore. I mean, you got people like T-Rex, and aren't there some kind of demon-like creatures in there now?
I think so. The Pony of Shadows and all that. But I do know that Cerberus had been introduced by this point, and they did build off that for T-Rex and Tartarus and things.
Okay.
And Sunset did become a demon.
In a very technical sense. It was more she just got a bit of a glow down.
Oh, true.
Glow down.
Oh, yeah. You're looking at her demon design and telling me that was a glow up.
Oh, I didn't argue it at all.
I've never heard that term before. Why would it be?
Well, it's nicer than saying she looked like shit.
As soon as he said, I'm like, yeah, it was a glow down.
I guess I would have said downgrade, but sure, glow down. We'll just glow down.
Yeah, downgrade just implies quality. Glow down implies aesthetics.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, for example, like, I am the glow down of Vladi.
What?
That
I'm just calling you pretty and me ugly, mate, right?
I am not that pretty. Not at all.
We'll agree to disagree on that. Right. So, Clever, do you think, considering you weren't in the fandom in 2012, do you think that this fic has the impact in 2023 that it perhaps did back then? Because it won that contest it was in, and a lot of people talked about this fic back in the day. Do you think it still holds up?
I mean, I'm kind of with Illya in that I'm not sure what would be different, in Pony Zeitgeist now than then that would change, a reader on this. But that's exactly, the point is that I would be ignorant about any changes that would be between now and then. I think its universality that you pointed out keeps it relevant, I guess. Yeah, I find that a difficult question to answer. But I feel the characterizations, with the exceptions that we talked about, or the curiosities that we talked about, that were probably only there to keep the story an economy of story, as Illya said, don't really affect it too much. If you think of Twilight as being a princess, as opposed to Twilight in the library, I think that even the descriptions that are in the story help to let you know that this is occurring at a time before Twilight's ascension. So, yeah, I think it holds up. I don't think that there's anything about it that makes it, unacceptable for people reading it now. Unlike watching old movies from the early 2000s, like I did recently, let me tell you, Joe Dirt really hits different today than it did back in 2000 whatever when I watched it.
A lot of films haven't stood the test of time. I have tried to rewatch things I loved from the 80s and just gone, holy shit, this is transphobic, or holy shit, this is homophobic, or just like all the phobics just mixed in. I'm like, how did my brain not retain that information? I tried to show narrator Poti. He's Don Quixote
Poti.
I tried to show narrator an episode of a TV series called The Vicar of Dibley that I grew up watching. And it was this beloved comedy series. And literally, second episode, massive set of gay jokes that just went through the entire episode. And I'm just got there going, I'm so embarrassed to be showing you this. We can stop. We can stop watching. It's fine. It's fine. We didn't carry on with that series, funnily enough. Things don't always age well.
Nope. They sure
I can't imagine why.
You hear that, J.K. Rowling? Things don't age well when you're a shithead.
Shots fired.
Oh yeah, like she's really gonna care what some random no-name pony YouTuber is gonna say.
Oh, you just wait. There'll be...
Oh, is the villain in her next book going to be a pony YouTuber making mean comments on a podcast that 1,000 people listen to?
You know what, Scribbler? I know you secretly want it to be.
No, I don't.
Oh, I'm sure you'd love that. I know I would. I'd read the hell out of it.
No.
Yep.
Now I'm just picturing that meme of everyone going...
So, anyone else notice Fluttershy going through the 5 stages of grief? Who wrote this plot point? Or this doc point?
I did.
Okay, Vladi, you want to explain this one?
Yeah, because I'm an edgy teenager at heart. So, I just, that's always something that I find fascinating when, like, a story dealing with, like, a death or, like, your coming end or dealing with a loss that, being able to actually see the 5 stages of grief and stuff. I've gone through this while waiting for pizza. It's a real thing. So,
Okay.
True story.
The pizza is going to be here. The pizza's not here. Could you please bring the pizza? The pizza's never going to
The
arrive.
stages of delayed delivery.
It was an hour late after it said it was delivered. It didn't get there until an hour after they said it would be there, and I was starving.
Couldn't have been very good either after all that time.
I still remember the delivery driver's name. Oh, I don't like her.
Sorry.
I tell you what, she did not get
some
a tip.
trauma here.
Okay, moving on though. So, with like the different stages she went through, like with denial, first Fluttershy tries telling herself that it's just a dream and it can't hurt her in the real world, and then bargaining, she tries going back and returning the returning the pocket watch in order to get it to stop, and then a little bit of anger from her being frustrated with Twilight and saying she returned the stupid watch and so all the stupid dreams will be over and stuff. And then a bit of depression when she is like feeling numb and not very responsive to Twilight and eventually crying, and then finally finds acceptance and just letting it happen until she realizes, oh wait, my friends are in danger, but it's too late by then. It tickled my brain juices.
Ooh, juicy brain.
You're phrasing. Oh my god. Don't you start, Illya.
What a nice, ticklish, moist,
We're talking about
juicy
zombies doesn't mean we're
brain.
talking about... No. We don't say that word.
Moist.
Stop it.
What word?
Moist.
I hate that word. It's horrible.
Apparently, according to a colleague of mine,
I'll take
it is
the tree
only
puns over that.
appropriate when discussing cake.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no other word you can use, apparently.
I love Terry Pratchett. I cannot read one of his books because the main character's name is Moist.
Oh no!
That sounds like a big F
He died in
you.
2015. I still haven't been able to bring myself to get past the first chapter because I kept hearing the word moist. Horrible.
So how does moist rank compared to bruh?
Oh god, moist is terrible. Bruh, I can deal with. Bruh can be funny. Even Milo agrees with me. You can hear him. Anyway. By the way, as a side note, I have just posted the entire Them series in the Discord chat in order because it's written by 2 different authors.
Nice.
Noise.
It is so damn good.
Is one of the authors better than the other?
Well, it's written by Rainbow Bob, who was
He's good.
he was a comedy author though, and I realised when I went back to the beginning of the series, I've adapted one of these.
Oh yeah, I've heard
the very
that one.
first one. Yeah, that's the first one in the series that just kind of spiraled outwards, and Paul Asseran ran with it. But he wrote the origin of them, which is either the last story in the series because it answers a lot of the questions the rest of the series throws up, or it's the first one in the series because it's the prequel and it explains where the virus came from.
He teamed up with Blue Shift for the He-Man thing, didn't he?
Yes, Rainbow Bob and Paul and Blue Shift did. I think it's just called He-Man and Equestria.
Yeah.
But it was one of my favorite things ever. Still to this day, I fucking love that story.
It was good.
It's so dumb, but so good.
I love the He-Man voice again. Yeah, that was just terrific.
Yeah, well, that's another VA who the fandom was lesser for losing him. He didn't stay for long, although he did voice Mr. Cake in my. I forgot what it's called now. I think it's Mr. Cake is a Cake, where I think that was that was Blue Shift as well. It was all about Pinkie Pie being convinced that Mr. Cake was actually made of cake.
Moist cake.
Strange.
I'll link that one in the doobly-doo because I'm actually quite proud of that still. Right. How threatening is the monster? How does it compare with other monster reveals discussed in Them's Writin Words? Who wrote this point?
Also me.
Do you want to give your own opinion on that before I open it up?
I mostly wanted to because it's my only other reference from Them's Written Words, the don't open the door, compared to that monster and its monster reveal.
Yeah, that one was a bit more psychological because it did play on what you wanted most to make you open the door so it could fucking eat you.
I wanted to see what you guys thought of NIGEB itself as a threat, how threatening was the monster itself, and then compared to it says other monster reveals. I'm just very repetitive today.
That's
To be fair, we've been talking for over an hour, and Clever did make you uninstall and reinstall all of your software and put your brain to that to begin with.
I'm so sorry.
Do you want to explain that one for those who are listening, what you did?
Well, we don't truly know that it didn't need to happen, but it's...
Do you want to say what we suspect you did?
Did it on purpose.
It wasn't on purpose. So...
No, we don't hold it against you, but it's just fucking hilarious.
All right.
It really is.
So I blame Narrator for not being here. And, yeah, because he's our tech support guy. And I was trying to help because I was in this, whatever you want to call this, Mumble. For those of you who don't know what the program is that we're using, because that's essential to the story. So we don't meet on Discord and just record it. There's a program that we use to connect and talk to each other called Mumble. And inevitably, the first hour of any of these podcasts is people not being able to connect to Mumble and being able to hear and talk to each other. So I connected early and I tested everything out and it seemed like everything was working. And then no one else was here. And then Vladi showed up and I could see her, that she was trying to talk because there's visual cues that let you know that, but I couldn't hear her, but she could hear me. So I assumed wrongly, potentially, that I was completely set up correctly and she was not. So I was busy trying to troubleshoot her, and then Illya, I'll add, was having difficulty because he was on a different computer than he'd previously been. So I was trying to help troubleshoot with him as well at the same time.
Throughout this story, Scribbler was asleep on the couch because she'd fallen asleep.
Apparently. So we got to the point where I was trying to help Vladi, and we tried to go through the different settings, and we realized that she had a different version than what I was using. And I said, I might be able to help you easier if you're using the same version. So she said, I guess I have to uninstall and then reinstall. And so that's what happened. But when Illya finally got on, I realized I couldn't hear Illya either. And then I started to wonder and question whether or not the issue wasn't that my headphones weren't set up properly. And then after a little bit of tinkering, I realized that they were not. And I could hear Illya quite clearly, but at this point it was too late. Vladi had already uninstalled.
Do the whole thing.
And it took her quite some time to reinstall, only to find out that her machine was not compatible with the newest version that she had tried to install. And then I went and found her old version again, and she had to reinstall the thing that she had uninstalled, and maybe didn't have to uninstall to begin with if I had my headphones set up correctly.
The fact that your voice is getting progressively sadder as you tell this story. Like, I didn't mean to. I caused all these problems and I'm so sorry. It's okay.
It's true. I feel really bad because I was just trying to help.
It's hilarious. It's so funny.
It is. It's okay.
I just wanted to see your face when you realized, oh shit, it's my headphones.
Well, Illya was present when I had that epiphany, and he was like, "You're cruel." And I was like, I didn't mean to. Yes, I'm cruel.
Well, in your defense...
Illya being very helpful.
In your defense, we're always so long between these recordings that everybody's got to figure out how to use everything again by the time we get back together.
It's true.
And eventually we all did get on, and we're all talking and recording and telling the story now.
It's okay, Clever. It's all good.
Yeah. That's why we're telling the story now, because nothing was damaged, no one was hurt. It's just a funny little foible.
And I just want to say, I'm sorry! I just felt so bad.
Oh wow, you were channeling so much Braven then.
Oh yeah, he's a part of me now, apparently.
He is to you what Twilight is to me. I've been trying to read other characters lately and just going, nah, still Twilight.
Yep.
It's like RD for Lost. She tries to do any kind of character. It's like, nah, hello, blue gay horse.
Blue gay horse.
Yep, whereas I am purple smart no matter what I do. The number of times I've had comments on my creepypastas with people going, is Twilight Sparkle in this story? No, fucking no. It's just what I sound like.
You are very adaptable as a voice actress. I have heard you sound very unrecognizable to me several times. And it may be that you occasionally fall into a bit of a rut that your voice naturally hits Twilight because it's so comfortable there. But I don't think that means that you're incapable of doing other things. You're quite talented.
Clever, did you ever listen to Apotheosis?
No.
She did all main
God.
sixes. All 6 of the main 6s in that.
I have heard her.
Yeah, and that was on my potato mic from back in the day. That was like 2013, wasn't it?
Did a good job of it.
I think it was balanced out by your amazing narration. Thank you very much.
Plus Luna. You did Luna as well.
You do an incredible Luna.
Oh, thank you. I will argue that Chipper and you are the best Lunas in the fandom.
Aw.
Oh,
Yeah, I give you. I heard VladiVoices Luna. I was really impressed.
Thanks.
Mhm.
But
That was back in History Repeats, back in like 2017 when we met, wasn't it?
yeah.
Holy shit, we've been friends for 6 years.
And it's Luna, so if it impresses me, it means something.
Oh,
That's true.
yeah.
Ilya has strong opinions on Luna and Celestia voices.
Senpai called me her friend.
Of course you're my friend. Do you think I let anybody in these fucking podcasts?
Well,
I
don't know.
No, here's your info. No, you have to be a friend to get in here.
Oh.
I'm a very insecure person. I assume that people don't like me and put up with me. Yari.
No, trust me, you would not have been invited. I think we've had this conversation. This sounds really familiar.
Yeah, it was before the recording.
It was in the before
Okay,
recording.
Oh
yeah,
shit, this
Vladi,
is being recorded. Fuck.
Bloody, you cool. Now we're moving on.
Okay.
Because nobody can argue now. No argument. Vladi is cool. Vladi is friend. Here we go.
Yeah.
So how threatening is the monster? Vladi, you said yours. Illya, did you say an opinion on this?
I have not yet, but
Okay, would you like to give an
it's
opinion?
about as threatening as any monster I've ever read. I think it's like slowly and methodically takes apart pony after pony. I'm not sure there's anything left in Equestria at this point.
Yeah, the idea, it was I can't remember the exact wording, but it was the line of it scraped her out, it hollowed her out and slipped inside. Did anybody else get the feeling that it was wearing Fluttershy as a
Yes.
suit?
Yep.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because I definitely got the impression of it's eaten her organs and is wearing her bones and skin.
Yep.
And that's not terrifying, but horrifying, certainly. Kind of grotesque, that's the word I'd use. There's some definite grotesquerie going on in the end of this story.
Silence of the Lambs kind of thing.
Yes, it
With
is.
a nice
where it's not
father
scary so much as
beats.
grotesque. I think that about a lot of written horror, that it's not scary, but if it can make me feel like it's grotesque, it's done well. Because it's hard to scare people with the written word in the age of TikTok and horror movies and all sorts. I keep citing TikTok because I don't have one, so I'm just pretending I know what I'm talking about.
Same.
Clever. What do you think about the monster?
Yeah, well, I mean, because we don't really see the monster, and
Well, do we? There's that gif at the end of the
I
story.
never saw the GIF.
Oh, the GIF isn't there anymore. Your video's
Oh
the
my
only thing
gosh!
left of it.
Oh, well, okay, this is where I have to recommend my own bloody fic reading then, because it's in the fic reading. I kept it in
Oh,
there.
okay. Well, then I was curious.
If you want to see what the monster looks like, I've got to admit, and I'm really sorry, Aquaman, because I know you worked hard on this, I didn't find it scary because it looks like a little piggy.
The horrible pig.
To be fair, pigs are fucking scary.
This
Oh,
My
yeah.
nana
little
was
pig
from Germany,
will
and
take
she did
you
her land
to
year.
market.
Well, she did her land year in the countryside in Germany, and there was a plane went by overhead, and they had to get into the air raid shelters like immediately. One of the other farm workers tripped, fell into the pigsty, and cracked his head. He was still alive. By the time they came out, the pigs had eaten him.
Yep, that they will do that.
Pigs are fucking scary.
They are. That they are.
That was a
And they
plot
have
point.
jaws that can crack hickory nuts, just chew them up.
So you imagine a human bone. Fucking hell.
Well, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
furthering a discussion we had before we started recording, that's another way to get rid of a body.
That's true, and that has been discussed in fictions before.
Oh yeah, that was in
Hannibal.
the show I watched too.
I was in
I
Hannibal.
think that might have been on an X
What show was
Files
that?
at one point.
Oh, gosh darn it! Hold on, I'm gonna go ask my roommate. She knows what it was.
Well, wasn't that a big
Dexter,
plot
probably.
point of Hannibal? Like, not the TV show, but the movie?
I've got to admit, I have not seen any films past the first one.
Oh,
Oh wait, I'm kind of remembering. I don't remember what it was called, but it was about the I think it's the one with the
pigs?
like the whole Victorian trans lady who's like transition kind of into man, or at least is trying to play the role of a man back then.
Oh, I think I do know. Gentleman Jack.
Yes, Gentleman Jack, that was the one. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
I
there's
haven't seen past the first couple of episodes.
yeah, there's
Keep
like
meaning to.
like some abusive dad there, I think, and there is the son like got rid of him when like the pigs die there.
I mean, that's quite clever, especially in the age before DNA testing.
I think it was Gentleman Jack. I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, let's just say Gentleman Jack is worth recommending anyway.
Yeah, that's pretty good. There is some sexy scenes that someone like me might find a little uncomfortable, but other than that, yeah, it was a really good story.
You found that uncomfortable? Hang on, mate. I first came across Gentleman Jack while watching a program called Gogglebox. Now, I know that this does exist in America, but it started in the UK, and it's basically a selection of people watching episodes of shows and commenting on them, like YouTube commenters, but just the TV editing team just cut out the funny bits. They showed that episode with the fingering scene from Gentleman Jack. I was sitting between my mom and my dad.
Oh, no.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Who are both quite prudish. And I'm sitting there going, oh, God, I've come over, because we used to get together on Friday night just to have a takeaway and talk about the week and things. And I'm sitting there with fish and chips in my lap and just going, oh, for fuck's sake.
F in the chat to pay respects to Scribbler.
Oh, it got funnier, or the worse, from my position. My mum was eating sausage and chips, and she turned and looked at it, and she went, well, they didn't have that in that scene, did they? Watch Gentleman Jack. Just don't watch it with your parents.
Yep.
Right, so we're on to final thoughts then. So, Clever, you want to give us your final thoughts on the story and whether or not people should read it?
I mean, if you like horror, if you like tension, it's a good fic. It's well written. Your mileage may vary. That's the best of what I gotta say. It is again total props to Aquaman. There's a lot of talent on display in this fic, and if you've listened to this podcast, I think you'll read it with a critical eye for what to look out for, and I think you'll appreciate it even more.
Illya?
Yeah. Wonderful author. Probably this wouldn't be my favorite work of his. But if you do like suspense and ethereal things and atmosphere and a pretty powerful monster, all things considered, then it might be just the fic for you.
And Vladi?
I would highly recommend it if you're like me and will just enjoy any sort of tension, mystery sort of story. It's very good, very beautifully written, and just a very fun read, and highly recommend Scribbler's reading. She may argue otherwise, but I think it was fantastic.
She does argue that quite a lot.
It's better than my original Luna audition from History Repeats.
You wash your fucking mouth out with soap, mate. I wouldn't have showed you if it was
so bad. I was speaking into the back of it. I didn't know it had a front.
Okay, that's amazing.
That's why it's always all crackly and distant sound. I'm like, God damn, I have to turn up so high. It turned out it was the back.
Oh, what, this microphone thing here?
Yeah, I thought you could just speak into any end, or I thought I had to speak into the top. But it's nope, the side. I'm like, it has a side?
Oh. And here I was concerned for a second you had it upside down, talking into the cord.
That's so good.
So same mic now, but much better quality.
That's why you wanted to re-record your flurry lines.
Yeah. Oh, no, the Luna line, but yeah.
You provided 2 different versions of Flurry, so I assume that's what...
Wait, I did?
You did.
Ah, God damn it. Do I need to read
By the way,
some more?
Nope. Go and listen to Vladi's Flurry Heart in The Darkest Dawn. It's really emotional. And also, she's spoken to the right side of the mic this time.
I wasn't sure if my flurry sounded decent at all, being that there's no reference. I'm like, princess voice, yeah! It's like, oh God, it just sounds like me. What the fuck?
Well, that just means you're a princess. Right, so my final thoughts are, it's an alright story. It definitely shows its age a bit. I think it's a good lens into early fandom horror before all of the gore took over completely. All right, and with that, we're going to spin the wheel. Now, there are only 3 of us in this chat right now who are eligible, and that's Clever, Illya, and me. So I will spin the wheel and see which one of us gets picked. I hope you 2 brought fics. Oh, and it's me. Yay! Okay.
Yay!
I'm the Fickpicker this time. God, it's been a while since I picked one. Yay! Luckily, I did indeed bring... I actually brought about 5. And literally... I'm going to pick randomly on one of the tabs of the 5 fics I couldn't pick between, and that's the one we're going to do. We're doing Soul Marked by Pingzing, which is a Celestia Chrysalis shipfic.
Ooh.
Like that.
Ooh la la.
I've tried my best. This one's only 12,000 words because I am notorious for nearly taking up the word count. I decided to be nice this time.
You're going to drop it in the Discord.
So, yeah. I'll drop it in the Discord. It is a romance drama featuring Celestia and
I
Chrysalis.
will like
Maybe
that.
we'll even get Gumbasta and Midori back, since this isn't a horror this time.
Oh.
Celestia and Chrysalis. I'm going to love this.
And there's some Luna in there too, because I have read this before, that's why.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ah, the fun has
So-
been doubled.
Yes.
Tripled. All right, and with that, we bid you adieu. So it's goodbye from me, it's goodbye from Vladi,
Goodbye.
goodbye from Illya,
So long, everyone.
and goodbye from the king of Mumble, Clever Hooves.
Goodbye. And I'm sorry.
Bye.
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 King of Mumble.
Right,
Ugh.